All right, we are live. It's another Thursday. Welcome to the RDU Buzz, where we talk all things real estate, recreation, restaurants, basically life in the Raleigh-Durham area. So, joined again with Cindy.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah. So last week, Cindy had a really good idea. I actually, it went really well because I always ask people to put into the comments where you are joining from. And Cindy had a good idea of essentially turning that into a game. So put in the comments where you are joining from to see who the furthest person away is. So make sure to add in the comments where you're joining from. But we've got a lot of really interesting topics this week.
One that's going to make people who live here a little angry.
Yeah, and
across the country, really.
But. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to be fair, this is going to be a nationwide issue that we'll start with. But obviously, it impacts the local folks as well. So we'll get into that. Next Level joining from Raleigh. Happy to have you. Next Level got Miss Tenacious joining from California. Nice. From the emojis, it looks like it might be warm and sunny there. So if it is, I'm very jealous.
Yeah. So yeah, me too. It's been torrential downpouring here this week. So
it's so cold.
I could use some sun.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we'll dig right in, y'all. And as folks are showing up, make sure to put in the comments where you're joining from. So the first thing we want to talk about tonight is the insurance increase that has been proposed. I'm going to pull up a chart that I want to share. Here we go, and I'm going to start with this one. So, for those of you who don't know, there is a proposed insurance increase for basically all the counties within North Carolina. I think the average is roughly 42%. That is going to vary significantly based on where you are in North Carolina. So for those who are in the Triangle specifically, I'll scroll down here so you can see on this chart, cities of Durham, Raleigh, Durham, and Wake County, it's a proposed 39.8% increase on your insurance premium, your home insurance, which is significant.
A small amount, it's going to be felt significantly whenever that does go into effect, for sure.
Yeah, and to be fair, your insurance is not going to increase 40%. This isn't going to become a reality. This has to go through certain channels at the state level. The state can renegotiate those terms, and then you will have an increased rate. It's not going to be 40% like this is showing.
Yeah, I'm really glad that the state has some say in things, because hopefully they're going to
which is really interesting, because
help us out here, because that is a lot. And then if you look closer to like the top of the chart, the poor people at the coast up here, a 99.4%.
And Brunswick,
crazy. And their insurance is already high up there on the beachfront properties. So to have that big of an increase would be significant.
Yeah, essentially doubling in price for them. But again, this isn't going to become reality. So you do have Durham and Raleigh at a proposed 39.8%. Chatham and Orange County, which are on the west side of the Triangle, are at a 25% proposed increase for your homeowner's insurance. So why is this happening? I think that's probably one of the major questions. Why are they proposing this? And before we get into that, I do want to talk about I think it was in 2020. The reason I say this proposed rate increase is not going to happen. In 2020, they proposed a rate increase, I think, of 24%, and the state negotiated them down to a 7% increase, which is still obviously substantial. But it's an increase is coming. It's just not going to be that level of an increase. But why is this happening? So a lot of it has to do, obviously, with these companies. They're for-profit companies.
For sure.
They got to make a profit. Business costs have gone up. Building costs have gone up. And so all of that impacts their bottom line. So that is some of that. Then you also have just an increase in what they call threats or vulnerable areas to natural disasters. So there's this interesting chart. So Lance Lambert, he used to work for Fortune magazine. He actually may still work there, but he created his own company called Resi Club. It's got a ton of great data on there. But he put together these really interesting charts on here, just talking about places that are primed for insurance corrections is the way he phrased it. So you've got places that are primed for it due to fire risk. So obviously a lot of the west, southwest region
right
in there, which I know Miss Tenacious, you can probably talk about this, but or speak on this, but I think it was in April of this past year where State Farm pulled out of California as far as writing new policies in California.
Crazy. That's kind of scary to think, because it's like if other companies had followed suit, what happens to homeowners in a place like that?
Yeah. And so so it's definitely, I mean, you have situations like that are occurring. I don't think they didn't dump the policies that they had. They were just, I think, refusing to write new ones.
Right.
And so that's showing up in these areas over here due to fire risk. But then you look at wind risk that could potentially cause an insurance correction, and this is us, right? So you kind of zoom in. Actually, I don't know if it's going to let me zoom in. Sometimes on these calls it doesn't let me, but basically you have the eastern part of North Carolina, which is right about where we are. So some of our counties are on here. You see Florida. Some of the highest and craziest insurance premiums out there are in Florida.
Yeah, Florida's crazy, and I feel like this is nothing new for Florida, because every time we work with clients that are moving up from Florida, they have so many questions about insurance, and I've always been like, what are you talking about? Like these rates just constantly feels like for them is like always doubling. So, I guess we're lucky that this is one of the, and of course we don't know what the total is going to be after the state kind of approves everything, but it's definitely a different life. Yeah. And we're not quite as far east as that green is going. We're a little more centrally located.
Yeah, we're a little bit further in. It is creeping in. And so, but this just shows like this isn't a local problem that we're dealing with here. This is a nationwide problem. You've got most of the eastern coast on this down into Texas. Up here, you've got most of the west dealing with their own issues.
Right.
And then the flood one's actually relatively not terrible. Which is kind of nice. So, but one fascinating thing, and I was listening to the individual that made these maps, Lance Lambert, and he was talking about how this will impact the housing market, and he essentially referred to this almost as like the third leg when you talk about a market where affordability is being hit. So you've got interest rates is one leg, you've got home prices are another leg, and now all of a sudden you've got increased insurance premiums that are rolling on across the country that are going to impact. And he mentioned, I thought this was actually a good point, this is really the only one that will impact homeowners.
Yeah, for sure. Because everything else is kind of being more if you're on the buying side or you're selling. But if this is like going to impact current people, and even if you've already locked into your interest rate and your everything, your payment's going to go up from a monthly perspective. So, and then the poor buyers that are out there, it's like, oh, finally getting a little relief on the interest rate side, and now bam, getting hit with this. So I feel like it's not one thing, it's another.
Yeah. Miss Tenacious actually, she chimed in and said, I'm in Northern California. Yes, State Farm is canceling policies for some customers. I don't have them. So that's just wild. So hopefully it doesn't get to that level. I'm not aware of anything like that happening in North Carolina, but obviously we are facing, not the fire risk or anything that California has, but as far as, insurance issues where premiums are increasing significantly, we'll be facing that here. But again, it's not going to be 40% in the triangle.
Yeah.
It'll be something, but it won't be that high.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be like 4.
Yeah. 4.
That's probably unrealistic.
It will not be. It'll be higher than 4.
I'm rooting for 4.
It will be higher than 4.
And welcome Sarah from Mebane and Sky from Northern Virginia. Thanks for joining in.
Yeah. And we got Stephen. Stephen from Fayetteville joining in. Yeah, Sky said, joining from Northern Virginia, looking to relocate to the Raleigh-Durham area, possibly Apex, Cary, or Holly Springs. Those are all awesome areas.
For sure.
And appreciate the kind words, so much knowledge on this channel. I really appreciate that. So,
thank you so much.
But anyway, I would love to know y'all's thoughts on this insurance issue, because I was reading I was watching some of the local news channels and some of the videos they were pointing out, and there was a lot of strong opinions on this, as there should be, and there are ways. So if you're here in North Carolina, there are ways to voice your opinion on that. There's different hearings. I believe there's a hearing that will come up later this month where you can voice your opinion. I think you can obviously email that in to the I think it's Rolls, the insurance commissioner. But so you can voice your opinion on this and be heard on it. Miss Tenacious said, I currently pay $618 per year for homeowners insurance. I don't live in a flood zone, so I have. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Wow, that's pretty low.
Yeah. That's really reasonable. So, and then I know you mentioned Sarah joining from Mebane. We are going to talk about Buc-ee's, so I would love to know. In a little bit later, we'll talk about Buc-ee's. I'd love to know y'all's thoughts on this.
And Explore Mebane NC just moved here from Southern California a couple years ago, and their rates were increasing at that point in time. Their family's policy was canceled and had to scramble. Wow, that sounds really scary, because I remember
that's terrifying.
Before we got into real estate, and we were like in between some different jobs, where I used to be a teacher, and so the state had covered my health insurance, and then between one school to another, there was like this gap in the insurance coverage, and so that was kind of a startling, scary feeling. So I'm sure it feels the same with home insurance. You're just like, hope nothing happens in the in between.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. So yeah. Would love, if y'all got thoughts on it, make sure to put them in. I'd love to know y'all's thoughts. So.
Yeah. And what you think the realistic number might be, if this is a proposed 39.8%, what do you think it actually might become?
Yeah. Well, if in 2020 it was proposed to be, I think 24%, they negotiated down to 7%. So I would still prepare. I mean, the difference in that is, that's like what, a third basically ish. Yeah. So who knows? But it'll definitely, an increase is definitely coming. So we got Heather from Scotland.
Wow. Heather is the winner so far and the farthest away.
My dad lives in Goldsboro. State Farm canceled his home insurance. He had to hurry. Oh my goodness. Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
In Goldsboro, North Carolina. Interesting.
Yeah.
Haven't heard of that anywhere around us, but that's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, so moving on to, we're going to get into some interesting migration trends going on in the country. So Opendoor, which so if you don't know what Opendoor is, they are they're what's called an iBuying company, which is essentially like a tech company that purchases homes in cash and then sells those homes. And they say that they're not a flipping company, but that's pretty much the definition of flipping. But
yeah. I feel like their version of flipping is that they're not doing like rehab projects. Like they're not looking for like a rehab project. They just want to look for people who don't have an interest in like putting their home on the market. Yeah. So they just pay them cash directly at a lower rate.
Great
and then they
scenarios to use them.
Yeah, sometimes it's convenient, but you definitely can lose out on quite a bit of money with the amount of fees and then just the lower cost of buying. But there are times that it's nice. Like if I inherited a house with a bunch of siblings, I feel like Opendoor would be like a nice way to do it, where it's just maybe like quicker, less paperwork and things like that. So there are good times for it, but they do purchase homes in the Triangle area. They're not nationwide. They have several, I mean, they're across the nation, but they're not in like every single market. So
yeah, exactly. But they put out a report for 2023's hottest zip codes. And this was really interesting because 2 of the zip codes on the list were right here in the Triangle.
Yeah, it's crazy. And they don't do they don't purchase homes across all 50 states. So I think the ones they purchase in are all in blue on this map here.
Yeah, and they but one crazy thing. So if you're looking at this list, out of the top 10, seven of the zip codes were in Texas, which is just wild. And we'll get to Texas here in a minute when we move to the U-Haul migration trends, which are also really fascinating. But North Carolina, we had there were just 2 cities in North Carolina that showed up on it. Both were here in the Triangle for the hottest zip codes 2023. One was Wake Forest, and if you don't know where Wake Forest is, it's on the northeastern side of Raleigh.
Yeah.
And then you have Fuquay-Varina,
yeah,
which is on the southwest side of Raleigh.
Yeah, both kind of like suburbs of the Raleigh area, but both definitely have their own feel to them. Wake Forest is a really lovely area. Zach actually lived there right before we got married. And so it's since the time of like us always being in Wake Forest, every time we travel in for work, it's just crazy to see how much development is there. And same for Fuquay. I mean, growing up, nobody, Fuquay was just like farmland. There was nothing out there. Now, when we go out there, it's just so much new construction happening in the Fuquay area. So it's not super surprising, and a lot of new construction happening in Wake Forest. So not super surprising to see, now Open Door doesn't do new construction, but it just gives you an idea of like where people are looking to move to. Yeah.
And, when I saw this list, it didn't surprise me at all, because I mean, when I look at our business, there's a substantial amount that comes from Wake Forest and Fuquay. And so those are just really, really popular areas. It would have been, I didn't do it. I should have run numbers on what percentage of homes from last year were Wake Forest and Fuquay
that we sold.
That we sold, just out of curiosity. But those are, I mean, there's a lot of folks who Wake Forest and Fuquay may not be on the top of the list when you start, maybe like a Cary or an Apex or High Springs, because those are just areas that you are familiar with looking at from afar. They've got a really good reputation, but then you get here and you realize what Fuquay and Wake Forest offer and how far your dollar can stretch in those areas.
For sure. Compared to Cary. Yeah. A lot further, and still has a lot of nice amenities in both, so exactly. And not far to just drive into Cary or Apex if you enjoy certain things that are there. But I mean, definitely still feel distinctively different, yet very similar.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I was happy. I was happy to see Wake Forest and Fuquay on there. I was just happy to see the Triangle on there as some of the hottest zip codes. I think that's pretty neat.
Yes. And the reason Miss Tenacia asked why Wake Forest seems less expensive, I mean, I think it's just my guess would be the location. It's
I would agree,
on the northeast side of the Triangle, and so you still have very easy access to Raleigh, but it can feel a little harder to get to places like south of Raleigh because it's just very far north. And so if you don't need to get on the south side of Raleigh or south of Raleigh, it's a great place to live. It kind of hugs like Durham and Raleigh on the other side.
Yeah, but it's still pretty far from, I mean, you're a 45 minute drive.
Yeah, 40 minutes from Durham,
so
and like
pretty far.
I mean, depends on, you could be 10 minutes from North Raleigh in some parts of Wake Forest, or 20, it just depends on where you're at in Wake Forest. But that would be my guess as to why, it's not like a bargain area. Like there's still, I think Fuquay is going to be more affordable than Wake Forest is when we talk about these two places, but it's still going to be, cheaper than somewhere like Cary.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it's 100% tied to distance.
Yeah.
So, but it's a great area. Wake Forest definitely feels more developed, I think, than Fuquay does, which depending on what your priorities are, that could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing.
Right.
So, but no, that's great.
Yeah.
So we've got quite a few more folks coming in.
Hi, Shanna from Nashville. Shanna's one of my old friends. Good to see you here.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Let me see. Got Tanner from Rochester, New York.
Nice.
And RJ, evening everyone. Hope to move back to North Carolina. Very cool.
Nice. From Hillsboro.
Yeah.
So it's changed quite a bit. Yes, it definitely has. I went to Orange High School growing up in Hillsboro, and it's definitely changed a lot. And just that, I mean, not that I just graduated yesterday, but just in that amount of time, it's changed quite a bit. So I'm sure it looks a little different, but I feel like downtown still feels almost the same, which is nice. It's got the cutest downtown.
Yeah, that is one of the things about Hillsboro. It feels it. I think it still feels rural. It's still got that like quaint downtown. I think Hillsboro, it's not immune to the change, but it's been at a slower pace than other areas, which is kind of nice in a way.
Yeah, so, definitely.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, so U-Haul puts out kind of in this same category. U-Haul, which is the company you rent trucks from and trailers from and all that kind of stuff, moving vehicles. They put out a study at the end of each year that is essentially going over where they saw the most moving happen away from and to.
Yeah.
And so North Carolina, and I'll share this screen here. North Carolina. Cool. RJ went to Orange High.
Nice.
That's really cool. Wow, what a small world. Yeah, what a small world. That's really cool. So North Carolina was number 3 on the list as far as states that received the most people. Florida was number 2. Texas was number 1. And if you look at the census data, it lines up directly with this.
Yeah, which is really cool because I know another moving company, I cannot think of the name of it right now, also released a study and it was a little bit flop, but I think they must not do as much like nationwide moving. So I think I trust U-Haul a little more.
yeah. But it's really interesting. Texas number 1, Florida number 2, North Carolina number 3, South Carolina number 4. I mean, South Carolina is another area that's really blowing up, like Charleston, Greenville, Tennessee's on there. So I mean the Southeast is
dominating.
When it comes to gaining folks. But I think with the census data, I'm not going to remember all of it off the top of my head, but the Texas was number 1, Florida number 2, North Carolina number 3 as far as the amount of people coming in. When you broke it down to percentage gained based on the population of the state, North Carolina fell, I think, to like 9th. Texas was still 1, Florida was still 2. There's just so many people moving to those areas. But
yeah, for sure.
So that was pretty cool to see that line up. And then they also, which I think in some ways is even more helpful, they broke it down by city. So what cities are gaining the most. And the only city that showed up on here in our area was Wake Forest.
Goes right back with that other
really shocked me, honestly. I mean, it lines up with the Open Door, with the Open Door study. But I would have assumed to see something like Raleigh or Cary, or Durham. I don't know, one of the major areas here, but Wake Forest was on the list.
I mean, there's a lot of new construction in Wake Forest last year, so I feel like that. Not that people that already live here don't buy new construction, but I feel like when you're on the outside and maybe you're buying remotely, sometimes new construction feels a lot easier, and there was just a high amount of it. So
yeah,
I could see it.
Yeah, and the only other area in North Carolina that made that list as far as cities go was Wilmington, which is down towards the coast, and Wilmington's been an area where there's been a significant amount of growth heading towards. So.
Yeah, and I think Charlotte was on the list too, actually ahead of Wake Forest. I think it was
it?
Number 7.
Charlotte was. You're right. Yeah, Charlotte was number 7. So yeah, the Charlotte region's growing substantially as well. It was just Wake Forest on this list kind of caught me off guard. I could see it on the zip code list, but on the cities that people are moving to the most, to see Wake Forest listed with like Charlotte and Austin, Texas, and Charleston. I mean, that's that kind of surprised me.
Yeah, because there's some really big cities on this list. I mean, Dallas, Austin.
Yeah, you have little tiny Wake Forest.
And then you have Wake Forest.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure, it is surprising.
Yeah, looks like RJ is living in Tennessee now. So
nice.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Well, so I wanted to bring up, there's a park that Raleigh announced. Actually, they announced it a while ago. It's going to be, let me see. It's actually there was a little bit of fascinating history on this park as I was kind of looking it up.
It's going to be called Devereaux Meadow.
I think that's part. I don't think that's the name of the park.
Well, that was the name of the baseball stadium.
Yeah. Anyway. So where this park is, there used to be a baseball stadium back in the 30s that was large enough, and it wasn't very large, just looking at the photos of it, but it could house a third of Raleigh's citizens, which is just wild.
Yeah, because the pictures of it, it looks probably smaller than the Durham Bulls Stadium, and you know that gets like completely full on a regular basis, and it's certainly this stadium not that many people.
Yeah, it was right here, built in the 1930s. It once held a third of Raleigh's population. Which is just wild. But anyway, so this is the area where this park is going to go. It does not look like that.
No,
nowadays
it looks terrible right now.
It is. I'll pull it up here. Actually, it was right.
Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah. So anyway, it's going to be a 14-acre park. They are going to this little white line essentially that goes around the park is where it's going to be. So those of you who are local to the area, you probably know exactly where this is. There's this is a road called Capitol Boulevard. It goes from Wake Forest right into the heart of Raleigh. I think it is the worst road
I
in
feel
the
like
triangle.
This photo is deceiving of traffic.
It is.
Capitol Boulevard.
It is. Sometimes it does look like this.
This photo must have been taken at 5 a.m. maybe.
It's way too light for it.
I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm kidding. It's not always that bad.
No. But so this isn't too far. Once you literally exit downtown and you get to this point in Capitol Boulevard. So this is like right. I mean, technically, you probably still could call this downtown. It's like right there on the verge of it.
Right.
But this basically sea of pavement here is going to become
like some old abandoned warehouses.
Yeah, it's going to become a 14-acre park, which I think is wonderful. I think anytime the city can take something that looks like this and turn it into a park is really cool.
Right. Yeah. They're not like destroying green space to make another park. So it's really cool. They're actually taking non-green space and turning it into green space, which is cool. But the most interesting thing about it is that there was this old like waterway system that somehow I guess is like buried at this point.
Well, part of is buried still under downtown.
Yeah.
The creek. So some of that's a little over my head because it gets into
it sounds kind of like they're going to unearth some of that
water management and whatnot, but
make a little boardwalk, which is like the coolest part of this Devereaux.
Yeah, I was going to try to get to some of the concept art here, but yeah, I think anything you can do to take, that the concrete, the sea of concrete there that looks just like an abandoned space and turn it into a green space. So these are some of the proposed designs, and the article mentioned it starting around sometime in 2025 and then completing around like 2027 or something along those lines. But basically they would reroute parts of the stream to kind of flow, put a boardwalk in there, make like some meadow space. Like it looks really cool.
Yeah, so I'm excited. It looks like it's just like going to be a fun place to maybe meet up with friends and go for a walk or a run and have a picnic or something. It's cool because I feel like this whole warehouse section close to downtown Capitol Boulevard, all these new things are opening up that are cool there, that are like kind of changing that landscape, but it still feels like warehousey. Like Raleigh Ironworks, if any of you have ever been there, is this like new mixed use space that's really interesting, where they took down some old warehouse stuff and put in some new restaurants and like commercial office space, and it's really cool. It has a slide for adults, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, are you talking about Raleigh Ironworks? Yeah.
Not too far from here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that part of downtown Raleigh, that part of Raleigh is really beginning to transform.
Yeah.
So, and I think this would be a major player in that transformation.
Yeah. It's definitely like beautifying and becoming more used, because I feel like it was just kind of vacant for a while. So it's nice to see a little bit of life brought into it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is called Devereaux Meadow, by the way. It confirmed on the title.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You were right.
The baseball field was Devereaux Meadow, and the park is going to be called Devereaux Meadow.
As usual, you were correct.
Yes, and this is recorded, so come back to that statement.
Yeah. So, Crystal mentioned a minute ago. I'm surprised, talking about the article we just talked about. I'm surprised there wasn't more representation from the RTP area. It seems like the RTP is collectively growing more than Charlotte. Yeah, it is surprising that. And one of the things, I don't know if this is true or not, but I feel like in Charlotte, you kind of just lump it all together, or in Dallas, you kind of lump it all to like some of these major
all the
cities,
other suburbs, right?
Yeah, you just kind of like, I live in Dallas, or I live in, like, I don't know. mean, I've never lived in Dallas.
We don't even know the names of the things.
But, you know, in our area, it's not uncommon for someone to live in Wake Forest and say, I live in Wake Forest. Like they don't say I live in Raleigh. Yeah. Or I live in Cary. They don't say I live in Raleigh. And so I wonder if maybe some of that is played into it. But yeah, I was surprised to not see, you know, Raleigh on the list, or Fuquay on the list, or Cary on the list, or anything like that. So that was kind of surprising. So trying to catch up on some of these comments. Steven said, not necessarily now, but at some point in the future, it'd be great to point out which areas you concentrate on. Raleigh, Durham. So I mean, really most of the triangle, I would say. So
that's going to include anything in Wake County, which would be, you know, Raleigh, Apex, Cary, Wake Forest, Holly Springs, Morrisville, Durham County's mostly just Durham, Hillsborough, and Orange County's got Hillsborough and Chapel Hill and a little bit of Mebane. So that's pretty much it. But, you know,
there are areas that we
outside
won't,
areas.
that we typically don't go to, that just get a little further out. So if you go really past, like south of Fuquay, we don't go that far,
right?
Or south of Clayton, we don't really go that far. So hopefully that's helpful. And Miss Tenacious had mentioned just being overwhelmed with the process of selling and then moving across country. Yeah, that's a stressful, process. So.
And what we normally would recommend to someone is, you know, come visit the area before you make any decisions about if you're going to move here. You know, like obviously, like our YouTube videos are helpful to get a picture, but it's always best to come and like just not even looking at houses so much, but just going to these different suburbs, because like we mentioned, like Cary feels similar in a lot of ways to Raleigh and very different in a lot of ways. And so, you know, once you're here, there's so many little towns around the triangle. It can give you a good feel for what really feels like home. And then, you know, go back, work on selling your house, then maybe come back this way and rent for a little while you're figuring that out.
Yeah. Rent,
or just the Airbnb.
Short term, Airbnb, VRBO. Those are some of the most common paths we've had folks go that kind of alleviate some of that stress. So you're not having to sell and buy from afar. You kind of get a little bit of a buffer zone to, and it really ensure that you're making a decision that's not rushed, and gives you a little bit of breathing room. So
for sure,
hopefully, but yeah, it is. I mean, no matter how you slice it or dice it, it's a stressful.
Yeah, moving is always hard. Even moving within the triangle, you know, moving from one house to another, there's just a lot of moving parts. You know?
Exactly. So on to the next one. Buc-ee's was approved on Monday night by the Mebane City Council. I believe it was a unanimous vote, five votes for it. It was an 8-hour meeting.
Yeah, they didn't finish until like 2 o'clock in the morning.
It was 2 a.m. when they voted.
That just feels like something that like sounds like that's government work that only like the president would be doing, right? Like that sounds so serious. Like we're in the meeting room at 2 a.m. You're like thinking about going to war. Nope, just Buc-ee's.
yeah. But it was they started at 6 p.m. ended at 2 a.m.
Interesting. It took that long though with a unanimous vote.
Well, a lot of it, I mean, they gave the public a chance to talk, and so
they gave them a long time.
There was a lot. It was probably like the
maybe a filibuster
episode of like Parks and Rec. Yeah,
with the roller skate filibuster.
But yeah, nearly 1,100 people live streamed the meeting on live. I was actually one of them. I clicked on the live stream to watch it. I didn't watch the whole thing. I didn't watch it. I was not up at, I watched it for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But I was just curious, you know, what route they would go. I didn't think it was going to go till 2 a.m., but
people had some strong opinions, and
they did,
warranted, I think, on both sides. But all in all, you know, definitely going to bring a lot of employment opportunity, a lot of revenue. And so I think that's why I got that unanimous vote at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, when there was a really good article on it on News and Observer, and they kind of broke down some of the, essentially how many people they're going to hire. They said at least 225 full-time workers will be employed.
Because that's not part-time. That's just the full-time side. Yeah. So, I feel like they got to have part-time also. I don't know if Buc-ee's is open 24/7 or what. So I guess that helps, but like, that's like more than like Walmart, that's crazy for a gas station. Like when I go to the gas station, there's one person inside and then Buc-ee's is going to have 225 people.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
And I don't want to get into too much of this because I know we've covered it on other ones, but like 75,000 square foot store, 120 gas pumps. But I mean if you're the city council, I mean when it comes to voting on something like this, the important number is 225 full-time employees.
Right. And the other important number would be, it looks like it's going to bring in almost $2 million in tax revenue. So that's a lot of money.
Sales tax revenue.
Sales
tax revenue.
So I don't know how the gas tax gets kind of lumped into that, but that's a lot, to bring in for the area.
Crystal said it's almost one person for every gas pump. Yeah, seriously.
One per pump.
Yeah. One person per pump.
That's funny.
But yeah, so anyway, it honestly, it doesn't surprise me that it was confirmed. I would have been shocked if it would have been anything other than passing.
Yeah,
and I think it was good probably for the city that it was unanimous as well, and there wasn't a lot of like infighting and division among the city council. Right. So I think that was probably pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, let me know if y'all plan to be there on opening day because I do.
Yeah.
I want to be there on opening day.
I want Zach to wear beaver teeth.
Yeah. I'll do a special edition live from Buc-ee's on opening day.
Breaking news.
Yeah. But all right. Last article. There was, I know sometimes we talk about, when we talk about Clayton, sometimes we talk about how the residential part of real estate is far exceeding the commercial space.
For sure. So much housing in like the last 5 to about 10 years in Clayton, like just neighborhood after neighborhood after neighborhood of affordable housing, which has been like just a haven for people to kind of flock to. That it's right next to Raleigh, so it's convenient if you need to be in Raleigh, but maybe you work from home or something. So that area, especially during the pandemic, when people had that work from home opportunity, it was like, hey, during the pandemic, at least, obviously prices have risen, but we can get in here in like the 300s. So it became like the place to go. But with all of that was there, it just felt like there wasn't a lot as far as like restaurants and shopping and things like that in Clayton. So we've always kind of said they really need more there. There's a few fast food type places, but it really needs more to like help support the massive amount of people that are moving there.
And so what we're leading to is I saw an article in the Triangle Business Journal. Granted, this is just a rumor at this point, but the owner of Mellow Mushroom in the Triangle bought some land in Clayton, which I think is good because Mellow Mushroom kind of floats the line of like it's not like it obviously is a chain, but it kind of has like a local flair to it as well.
Everyone feels really different.
It does,
and
it does.
Each one has its own kind of menu too, so they have similarities. But it definitely, I feel like if it's between Mellow Mushroom and McDonald's, Mellow Mushroom feels like much more like. You feel like you're supporting something more local. And obviously it's not fast food, so that's nice just to get something that's not just a drive-through. Yeah, exactly. And their pizza's really good. It is good. So I think something like that would be beneficial for the Clayton area. So yeah, for sure. I think any restaurants that can come into Clayton is going to be beneficial. Yeah, exactly. So Sarah had a good point here. I thought was really, really valid. So going back to Buc-ee, she said, my hope is that the city would take tax dollars generated and thoughtfully invest in nice amenities and recreation for the residents. Nice. Yeah. You're 100% spot on. Because there's one really nice park and playground area in Mebane. I think it's like Mebane Community Park, or I can't remember the exact name. Yeah, you could probably speak on. Our kids love the splash pad there, and so that's really nice. But it'd be great to see maybe a little more of that. Some more. There's not much of like a big trail system through Mebane, so it'd be cool to see something more like that. Yeah, because Mebane's invested
significantly in their downtown.
Yeah.
And it's really nice.
It's such a cute downtown. It really is. There's, it's always been pretty cute, but I feel like they've done a lot in the last 5 years or so, and they're getting some pretty good stuff in there. Good shops. Exactly.
No, but that's a fantastic point, Sarah. So, all right, rounding out, I figured we would end on mortgage rates. So I always like to bring up mortgage rates, just give a weekly update. High sixes, 6.7, which is roughly where we were last week. So again, I think we're probably in a season where these hold steady for a little while. But it was this time, I know we talked a little bit about this last week, but it was this time last year where they dipped all the way down into the fives. I highly doubt we'll see that. We'll see that this year. So
hopefully this year will be a little less of a interest rate roller coaster ride.
Exactly.
That nobody wanted a ticket onto.
Yeah.
I think we'll see things be a little more stable, but probably in that 6 range. I don't think we should get our hopes up for the 5s this year.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, that is all the topics for tonight. I really appreciate y'all joining in. Really appreciate the engagement. Love all the questions, love all the comments.
Yeah, RJ is mentioning some stuff about the history of NASCAR in North Carolina and how it actually kind of was originally started in the Hillsboro area. That we have the Okanichi Speedway.
Yep.
And there was a lot of races there with like very well-known race car drivers.
Yeah, and you can still go walk that speedway.
Yeah, and there's some old like abandoned cars there and the old bleachers and snack stands. It's like a trail. I feel like Hillsboro did such a great job.
Richard Petty won the last race that ever took place on that track.
Cool.
So
and then it kind of got
really
shifted. Cool, it was a dirt track, so just a different time, but it got put in Charlotte. So it'd be interesting if that would have that big of a stadium would have stayed in Hillsboro, like what the climate of Hillsboro would have been. So I guess, in ways, I feel like it was a good thing because Hillsboro has that small town feel. So if you had that much tourism coming in, it would definitely change the landscape of the area. And it would be very loud.
Yeah, it would be. So it's a really cool history.
So if you live here and have not gone on a walk around there, highly recommend it. It is really cool.
And it connects into, if I'm not mistaken, we've never walked this route, but I think it connects into the Riverwalk. I think you can get to it.
Yeah, I think you can. I don't think that portion is paved of the Riverwalk, but you can connect to it.
Yeah. Perfect. Awesome, y'all. Well, I hope y'all have a wonderful weekend. Thank y'all for joining us, and we will see y'all here next Thursday.
Thanks for joining in. And this episode was sponsored by Mima and Papa downstairs.
That's true. Yep. That's who we got. We got to go relieve Mima and Papa, our weekly sponsors. All right. Bye, y'all.